God bless you guys. Let's hear the news together so that we can have a lot to pray about.
Iranian officials preparing for more nuclear negotiations in Geneva tomorrow, part of President Trump's latest attempt to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. New comments by Trump and Iran's top diplomat shows just how quickly a military conflict could break out. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports from Washington. American and Iranian forces each positioned and ready as their leaders attempt to keep diplomacy alive.
When you are prepared for a war, you can prevent it.
That's Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi hours after President Trump told Americans this in his State of the Union address Tuesday night.
One thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon.
Iran's objective is to see economic sanctions lifted. But ahead of nuclear talks in Geneva Thursday, the Trump administration hitting Iran with more sanctions.
They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon.
Iran has said it, though few outside the regime believe it. Iran's foreign minister posting Tuesday, "Our fundamental convictions are crystal clear. Iran will under no circumstances ever develop a nuclear weapon. Neither will we Iranians ever forego our right to harness the dividends of peaceful nuclear technology for our people." Tuesday afternoon on Capitol Hill, Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefed the Gang of 8, lawmakers in leadership positions and top ranks on intelligence committees. Democratic leaders argue that as President Trump prepares his military options to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, his statements about U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities last summer don't add up.
Wait, what happened to Iran's nuclear program being completely and totally obliterated? Donald Trump's words, not our words. Clearly, he was lying to the American people, or he's lying right now.
President Trump making this
Right.
new claim about Iran.
Oh my
They're
God.
working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America.
A spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry responding with, "Professional liars are good at creating the illusion of truth." A sign the regime is preparing for possible war, Iran has been loading oil onto tankers at an unusually rapid pace, according to a Bloomberg analysis. The U.S., meanwhile, sending F-22 fighter jets to Israel. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
So that means that Trump was lying to the people. Because why is he then trying to supposedly eliminate their nuclear weapons now? That doesn't make sense. Then that means he wasn't really sure, or he was just lying. Yeah. Okay, on to the next thing.
Search for Nancy Guthrie goes on, but developments in the case seem to have slowed until today.
This new drone footage you're looking at here shows investigators and federal prosecutors at the 84-year-old's Tucson home today. Still, no suspects, no persons of interest have been identified in this case.
For the past 25 days, Nancy's family has lived through a nightmare few of us can imagine.
But for one Arizonan, that pain is a reality she's been living with for years. Fox 10's Megan Spector joins us now in studio with more on this. Megan.
Yeah, since February 1st, we've all just been wondering, where is Nancy Guthrie and what happened to her? It's the same questions that Marcy Dower has been asking about her own mom since 1965.
But we need to know where she is. We need her to come home. A plea for answers. Someone out there knows something that can bring her home. Somebody knows. And we are begging you to please come forward now. One that hits close to home for Marcy Dower, whose mom went missing from her shop in Scottsdale 60 years ago.
The police found her car parked a block away from the shop, and the keys were in the ignition. Her purse was in the back. She disappeared, and every day I kept thinking
She disappeared.
something would turn up.
Maria Teresa Ruthling's photos still posted in the National Missing
some
and
people believe in
Unidentified Persons
aliens.
system.
I
That's
feel
all I'm gonna
for
say.
Savannah so much. I know she wants to have an answer, and like it's been 60 years, and We've never had a closure or a solution.
It's been 3 weeks since Nancy Guthrie was believed to have been abducted from her home. Investigators still sorting through thousands of tips, DNA evidence, and home surveillance footage. Modern tools Marcy wishes she had access to back then.
The police station in Scottsdale in those days were like the old cowboy movies where it's just a little tiny office with a couple cells for the bad guys. There was no DNA testing and no ring doorbells and that kind of a stuff. We didn't have the FBI helping us. We didn't have the president helping us.
Heartbreaking videos shared on social media show the Guthrie family's search for the truth. For Marcy, it's more than a post, it's a mirror.
I'm just asking, please let them have a closure to whatever happened. And if somebody has done wrong, let there be justice.
Marcy is praying for Nancy's safe return while still waiting for her own answers.
I just feel like somebody has to know something still yet today. And I would hope that someone would speak up.
If you do know anything about the disappearance of Maria Ruthling, you can contact Scottsdale Police. As for the search for Nancy, it continues, and the FBI is still encouraging tips to their hotline.
So they haven't found
the
her.
family is now offering a reward of up to $1 million for the
God, I
recovery
pray that
of
she would be
Nancy.
found,
We're live in studio tonight,
and
Megan
most
Spector,
importantly,
Fox 10 News.
that she would be saved.
Match
In
with a local
Jesus' name.
TurboTax expert at our new in-person location.
On to the next thing.
Get to the latest in Mexico after one of, if not the leading member of the cartel in Mexico, El Mencho, as we were talking just before the break, taken out on Sunday. Steve Harrigan on the ground. Let's get the latest reporting there.
Busy Costco shoppers walked through a parking lot where cars burned Sunday, hoping the spasms of violence that brought the Mexican state to a standstill are over. After the killing of the world's top drug trafficker, El Mencho.
La verdad, tristeza. The truth is, it's sad because Puerto Vallarta is a very quiet port where you can walk the streets day and night with all the tranquility in the world. And
That
this
man was
leaves
a
us a bit
sex-
restless to do
Why?
our day to day.
Whatever.
Cartels like to target bigger vehicles, buses, and trucks.
Ah,
They
man,
set them
this
on
world
fire.
is
They're
insane.
able to block many lanes
People
at the same
advocating
time,
for
causes chaos,
wickedness.
but also slows the response of law enforcement. The country's president says all is well as roads, schools, and airports reopen.
Little by little, things are returning to normal.
But local residents aren't so sure. They worry about the impact on tourism, which brings in more than $30 billion a year and accounts for about 8% of the country's GDP. Much of that comes from Americans who cut their trips short after witnessing the violence.
As the helicopter was going by, we could see three men sitting on the side with guns and their feet hanging over the edge of the helicopter.
There's also concern about
Damn.
the World Cup. Mexico is scheduled to host 13 World Cup matches this summer, with some games in Guadalajara, which has been in a state of emergency since Sunday.
We have total confidence in Mexico and its president, and we are convinced that everything will turn out in the best possible way.
That's more confidence than even some Mexicans have. When we asked people here, is the violence over? Many responded, it will never be over. In Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, Steve Harrigan, Fox News.
So I was looking at the State Department website a couple hours ago. They did post a new advisory, and I'll read it verbatim. They say in the last few hours, U.S. officials now saying all restrictions related to the events of Sunday on U.S. government staff in Mexico have been lifted. They also say that U.S. citizens in Mexico should now resume standard levels of precaution. So a sense of normalcy being projected from the State Department and from the U.S. Embassy. Hal Kemper's still here with me. He worked on the war on drugs under U.S. Southern Command. If I have it right, Hal, Mexico is not in Southcom's jurisdiction. But how much do you know about cartel activity in Jalisco? That's where a lot of this was centered. When you were working on the war on drugs, was Jalisco considered a problem area?
Not as much. Actually, when I worked under U.S. Southern Command, but I also worked under a thing that would now be under Northern Command. Southern California, we worked against what was then a faction of the Sinaloa cartel. And so Culiacan, Sinaloa, that was always big. That was a big area. Of course, everything close to the border, anything along the border, you saw a lot of cartel activity. But as you went further south, there wasn't as much cartel activity. That was changing, though. That was the 90s. In the O's and the teens, things just dramatically spread throughout. And of course, a lot of it had to do with the change coming with the movement of cocaine. Cocaine in the 80s, for example, in the early 90s, a lot of it was, kind of Miami Vice stuff. It would go across the water or via planes into Florida. Well, that Florida pipeline was kind of shut down for a large extent, and everything shifted. And when it shifted, you're seeing kind of what you're seeing with with our strikes on the watercraft that are taking large loads of cocaine out of South America and trying to move it up into Central America and into Mexico, and we're intercepting those boats and those semi-submersibles. That's what happened, and when that happened, it brought the drug trade into central Mexico in a way that it had not been there before, and it really brought the cartels working throughout all of Mexico in a way that they hadn't. And I would also mention with the Jalisco New Generation cartel, they're big into fentanyl and some of the chemicals that go into methamphetamine. They've got ports on the Atlantic and they got a port on the Pacific, and that's where those chemicals come in, and that's one of the reasons they grew so fast. They made so much money.
So let's kind of talk about El Mencho. He gets taken out. How does a vacuum like that typically get filled within a cartel? I mean, is it a family member that would step up, or are there other avenues that they use to fill the void? As Steve Harrigan reported in his piece there, this is the top drug lord in the world. How does somebody like that get replaced?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say usually there's a lot of violence involved no matter who ends up on top. But a lot of times, for example, you've seen in the Sinaloa cartel, his sons have always taken major roles, or there'll be a very close friend, like a partner that he's had from the very beginning. That's very common, and you saw the same thing with the Beltran Leyva cartel and other cartels where there would be key family members. The thing with the drug trade and with all criminal organizations is trust, and it's who they can trust. And usually who they trust, if you will, blood is thicker than water, so to speak, and they trust their family members, and those are the ones they let in, and hence they create these kind of almost like royal succession things where you'll see brothers or sons or uncles or whatever will often step in when one of them is taken out. Now in this case, he's got a problem
Makes
because
sense, yeah.
his wife,
So they normalize drug
was
trafficking,
just let out
basically.
of prison. She was in there, and she's obviously not going to take
That's what
over. And then
cartel is.
he doesn't have a whole lot left.
All right,
He's got a couple
organization
brothers
that
from prison. I think his
pushes
son is
that.
in U.S. prison, and then I'm talking about Mencho, and then the other two that would likely take over just don't have enough influence in the cartel. So now they've got 4 major lieutenants that are probably vying for control of the cartel, which is another way of saying you're going to see a lot of violence.
Al Kemper's a retired Marine Intelligence Officer and the host of the Strat podcast. You can listen to Strat anywhere podcasts are available. Man, there's a lot going on in the world lately. What are you going to cover on Strat next?
I may be talking about Mexico.
Yeah.
Good up there.
Mexico sounds about right. And of course, you and I keeping a tight eye on Iran as the days tick by as well. Hal, good to see you. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Austin.
You can really feel the author's hunger while he was writing this.
Very insightful.
Yeah. So we have to pray for Mexico. There's a lot of drug trafficking being normalized there because of the cartels. Again, the cartels is really composed of a group of people that push drug trafficking. We have to pray that there would be a revival in Mexico. We know that Mexico is not only well known for that, but also for witchcraft and occult practices. They celebrate all these demonic traditions as well. They worship saints, they worship the dead. We have to pray that there would be an outpouring of the Holy Spirit in Mexico, and that God would raise up more ministers to push forward the agenda that pertains to God, and that the diabolical schemes would be plundered. Amen. Next.
their midnight hammer. They were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue, starting it all over. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon.
Okay, so President Trump doubling down in his address last night that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons as part of any deal with the U.S. This as negotiators from both countries are set to resume their talks tomorrow. Our chief foreign correspondent, Trey Yingst, is live in Tel Aviv with much more on this. Hi, Trey.
Aisha, good morning. Overnight, at least a dozen U.S. F-22 fighter jets landed here in Israel as part of the ongoing military buildup across the region. We know these planes are normally stationed in the United Kingdom, and they have now arrived in Israel. At sea, the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier is making its way to the eastern Mediterranean in preparation for possible conflict with Iran. And while the U.S. prepares for war, President Trump, in his State of the Union address, once again reiterated his preference for peace.
My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen.
With nuclear talks set to resume tomorrow in Geneva, Switzerland, Iran's foreign minister put
First
out a statement
Thessalonians
overnight
chapter
saying, in
5,
part, quote,
there
our
will be
fundamental
peace.
convictions are crystal clear. Iran will,
And you
under no
guys that are
circumstances,
Christians can
ever
fill in the
develop a
blank.
nuclear weapon. Neither will we
If you know
Iranians
that
ever forgo
prophecy.
our right to harness the dividends of peaceful nuclear technology for our people. And while diplomatic efforts continue, so do the war games in the Persian Gulf, with new Iranian drills being conducted this week.
All units across various capabilities, including missile, artillery, drone, special forces, armored and mechanized forces, have designed very effective measures. These plans have been developed based on existing threats.
These talks tomorrow in Geneva, Switzerland, are seen by some analysts as a last-ditch effort to reach an agreement or enter into a direct conflict. Aisha?
Hey, Trey Yingst live for us out of Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you very much. Bill, a lot of folks came out last night from that Senate briefing feeling like this is an ominous moment.
Yeah, we've been reminding our viewers all week about the state of play here for the geography with Iran, and really has a bullseye on it right now. Whether or not the U.S. takes action, we don't know. But it sure kind of looks like it a little bit when you look at the assets and where the U.S. military is building up. Everything you see here in yellow is a Navy ship. Everything here in red in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Oman, that's a U.S. military base in the Middle East. In addition to that, you've got, well, just in the past 48 hours, there were F-22s flown into Israel as well. So all those aircraft are well within striking distance of Iran. In the water, on the sea, you've got U.S. naval assets. And just look at this. The president calls it Armada. He's right about that. When you look at everything that's lined up between the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea and here in the Eastern Mediterranean. So we don't know if it'll happen or not as we'll move back over here to Aisha. And you were talking about this meeting that Secretary of State Marco Rubio had yesterday with the Gang of Eight. All right, that's behind closed doors. It's top secret stuff, and this Democratic senators came out. I mean, they were quite concerned. I think is the expression that we were talking about a bit earlier today.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. They said, well, the president has to now make a case to the American people. They didn't say the president has to make a case to Congress, which makes you wonder what that is about.
All right, well, we're watching, and we'll see whether or not it happens.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.
Do you need metal? We have 90.
All right. I guess that's it. God bless you guys. Stay tuned. More videos will come out.